And I will just say, being real is actually what gets me in trouble. So my goal today is to be real, but just to a point. And one of the things I wanted to say right off the bat is I know what you're thinking. I know you're over there thinking, what are we going to learn about our own region from this chick from Austin? And before I get started, I do want to tell you one thing. I just don't have it in me to come up here and start talking about planning when the really big thing going on in my heart is a funeral that's going to be happening here in Nashville tomorrow. I love you, Mitch, but I love George Jones more. And when I think about all the zillions of times that I've been dancing at my favorite honky-tonk in Austin to George Jones songs, really, if it was up to me, we would just play Jones songs the rest of the afternoon and deal with the planning issues some other day. But I do think that the legendary George Jones has something important to relate to us in terms of planning. And this is pretty much how I sum it up. When I think about George Jones, what I think about is somebody who knows exactly how to be true to his own core, who knows how to be really emotionally honest, maybe too honest, but he put it all out on the table. The good stuff, the great songs, as well as the mess at times that he had made. He kept on learning and growing, but he never did change who he was. And I think one of the reasons that people love him so much is not just because he's the best singer there ever was, but maybe because he knew how to stay to his core better than almost anybody. And when I think about Middle Tennessee, a big part of what I hear and what I wonder about is as all these incredible trends that Mitch talked about start to happen, all the population growth, all the inclusivity, all the new urbanism, how do y'all stay true to who you really are? To compete in the world economy, it's not just about job creation and talent attraction. A lot of it is about authenticity, about staying true to what you have that nobody else has. I am from Austin. I am really proud of my town. But I'll tell you right now, when I think about competing with this region, it makes me shake in my boots a little bit. And as we go along, I'll try to tell you why I think that is. Now, one of the things I'm going to do here, I know a lot of you want to see the polling that I was lucky enough to get to do about this region, and I'm going to get to that, but I want to put it in the national context. This is a list, and it's just a partial list of the national shifts that have happened just in the last decade or so. We've had, of course, global terrorism, attitudes about oil and energy have changed. We've had systemic economic failure, a housing collapse, the whole rise of the bankster phenomenon and concerns that people have about what's happening on Wall Street. We've had weather-related catastrophes, political stalemate, constitutional rollbacks, and so on and so forth. When you live in Nashville or Austin, we have it so good in our regions that it's hard to really remember how tough a lot of the other folks in the country really have it and just how much is really changing out from underneath us. I don't know how many of you all saw this. Bloomberg named both Austin and Nashville two of the boom towns in our country. Austin's number 1, this one was number 9. And when you're booming the way we're booming, it's somebody said when I was here last time, it's like we're the prettiest girl at the prom. And that's something to be really proud of, but it's also important to remember that's not what most people are experiencing. Most people in the country, I think most people in the world, minimum wage, most people are really having a tough time just making it. If you don't have a college degree, if you don't live in a creative knowledge economy type job, this is not a fun, boom kind of time for you as a person. This was a New York Times article about the next generation having a really hard time being able to compete even with their own parents in terms of how much progress that they could make economically. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about national priorities, and then when we look at the local priorities, we can try to fit that in a little bit. This was from the APA poll that Mitch mentioned, And what I want to point out, first of all, when you look at a chart like this, and I don't know how many of you can see it, but at the bottom of the barrel of priorities nationally, you have land use, transportation, and climate change. If I had $1 for every client that's come in and said, would you please do a campaign around land use, transportation, and climate change? I don't take those kinds of projects, and you can kind of see why. As important as those issues are, they're not anywhere close to as important as the economy, jobs, our debt issues, health, energy, and education. And so even though most of us, if not all of us in this room, care intensely about transportation issues, land use, and climate-related issues, it's important to recognize most people don't feel that way. We're not, many of us in this room may be leaders of one kind or another, but we're not the norm. And it's very important to recognize, as smart as we are and as leaderish as we all are, we have to connect with everybody else that's out there. And this is a chart, I think, that explains a great deal about what is really important to people right now. Most communities in America feel like they are worse off now than they were 5 years ago. I want to just point out how intense that is at the small town level. In the urban areas, about 40% feel like they're worse off. In suburban areas, about 45%. Rural areas, that goes up to 58%. In small towns, it's almost 70%. So when we talk, and we often do, about the shift towards urban areas, when we talk about new urbanism, it's important to understand not everybody lives in a city as much as we talk about that. Not everybody wants to live in a city. One issue that I see all over the country is people do not think their area has enough economic planning going on. People can't always see economic development. They don't always know what's happening and when it's happening. And this is a chart, I think this is the first time this chart, this particular question's ever been asked in a national poll. And the question was simply, do you believe that market forces alone are what's going to bring the economy back? Do you believe it's planning alone or some combination? And the finding, it kind of surprised me here. By far, most people feel it's a combination of positive market forces and also intentional planning. One thing, I don't know if Mitch really likes me showing this chart, but I show it every time because people, if you hang around new urbanists, if you hang around planners, you would think that everybody on earth is just dying to live in a mixed-use, downtown, walkable neighborhood. I mean, seriously. And, you know, as much as we might wish that was true, it's just plain not true. I have 50 first cousins in Texas that live in rural areas. And if you go hang out with them at Christmas or Easter, and you start talking about walkable downtown areas, you will get yourself killed. I mean, in all straight face, you will get yourself killed because a lot of my cousins, they don't have a lot. They would be your typical Walmart shopper. Most of them haven't gone to college. They don't have a whole lot, but what they do have, they love with a passion. They love their rural lifestyle. They love the character of where they live. They love hunting and fishing, and they love hanging out. And if you try to take that away from them, it's not just an intellectual problem. It's a problem of passion. It's a problem of who they are. And so I always want to say, look, when we talk about the fiscal realities of new urbanism, when we talk about the tax base, all the things we've been discussing today, I really want to bring into the room, we saw the few people, I guess, here that are from rural areas. It's important to me as a person that works with planners to always say, you know what, you have to deal with what it is that people love. And in this case, I just want to point out that not even in that younger demographic, which we all talk about so much, not even the young ones all want to live in cities. So with that as a little bit of a backdrop nationally, let me talk about the poll that I did. And I just want to say, first of all, I'm jealous of a number of things that you all have in this area that we don't have in Austin. I would steal Mayor Dean and bring him to Austin in about 2 seconds flat. We don't have a Bridget Jones in Austin. If I could take her back to Austin, I would. Rick Bernhardt, the planning director in Nashville, I would just kill to have him for 5 minutes in my hometown. So many of you, I don't think y'all have any idea how great the leadership in this area really is. And in a second, I'm going to show you, you don't have just great people. You have a tremendous degree of coherence, meaning you have a lot of folks that are really lined up on what the priorities for this region are. When I first started doing this work, I was on the client side, not the consulting side. And when the pollster who did the Austin region came in, this is what we had. On every single chart, what we had was 40% feel this way, 40% feel this way, and the rest are scared to pick a side because the fighting was so intense. And we've worked on that, we've worked to have our regional coherence, but we don't have it. And I'm envious because what you're going to see in a second is you all have an almost unbelievable degree. You're from different areas, rural, suburban, and urban, different political parties, different ages, but you have a lot of common values, a lot of common vision, and I'm really excited for you. It's rare in polling to see it the way that it is. I do want to mention one thing. At the beginning of my project, I was asked to just one-on-one interview 100 community leaders. And that was really fun. I love doing that. But something strange happened, and it's never happened to me before. Literally every single person I interviewed, from Mayor Dean, Ed Cole, all the way on through the other 98 people, they all said exactly the same thing. When I said, oh, what are the top priorities for you? This is what every single person said: economy, transit, and open space. Okay, that's what they all said. And I thought, wow, this project is going to be the easiest piece of work I've ever done. Everybody around here sees it the same way. Well, interestingly, when I got to the polling, I did a 2,000-person poll here, 1,000 people in Davidson County and 1,000 people in the other 9 counties. An interesting thing happened. That isn't exactly how everybody saw it. One thing that's interesting about this region is people here just really, really love their single-family homes. And you're going to see quite a few charts here that show the rest of the region. That's the 9 counties that aren't Davidson, and then the metro Nashville area, that's basically Davidson County. Single-family homes, 80% said they saw themselves living in that kind of a home at some point in their life. It dropped down to 20 and 28% for multifamily, 20 and 30% for duplexes, a little bit better for townhomes. So even though we talked before about the great advantages from a fiscal and tax standpoint of density, there is some pushback in terms of, most people still basically want to live in a single-family home here. This is a great, and I apologize, if you need some Advil to go with these stacks of numbers, I have some, and I'll share. These columns, it's the national figure, then it's the regional number, and then it's the metro Nashville number, okay? When you think about an ideal community, regardless of where you live now, an ideal community, what is that, what's important to you? The number one in this region was energy-efficient homes. I can tell you with certainty, the 100 people that are community leaders that I interviewed, not one person really said anything about energy. Honestly, it sort of shocked me. It just wasn't a topic of conversation in these interviews, which was, was all about priorities. The number one issue, an energy-efficient home. Being able to stay in the same neighborhood as you grow older is a huge issue for people. Availability of sidewalks. Locally owned businesses nearby. The last time I came here, I got in a great deal of hot water because I tried to focus some attention on small businesses. One of the advantages I think that Austin has over this region is you have just as many completely cool small businesses as we have, but you don't talk about them very much. If you come to Austin, that's pretty much all you hear about. Austin defines itself as weird, that's our brand. And to us, weird equals cool, iconic local businesses, and not just in downtown Austin or in Austin, but throughout the region. I think that's an area, maybe we can mix that up a little bit. I'm sorry if that makes some people mad. But it is actually an incredibly important element of what makes a community ideal. And people have a lot of love for their local grocery store, their local, what used to be record store, now a CD store. There's the local bookstore, the local diner. They don't just go there. A lot of times they love it, and there's a tremendous amount of power in understanding the base of small businesses that you have. I'm not going to go all the way through this. I will say houses being generally the same size is an almost universally low priority when people think about what's important to them. Mix of housing choices, not that many people want to see an apartment here and a mid-sized home here and a larger home there right in the same arena, but some people do, about between a quarter and almost 50% see that as something that could be in their ideal mix. Mitch talked before about national trends. There are three really important national trends: the senior tsunami, the large family shift down to smaller households, and of course racial and ethnic diversification. In the country, about 71% are aware of the seniors. Here, that's almost 10 points higher. The large shift of families, only about half the people understand how much smaller households are getting. Here, look at these numbers about the large number of people here who understand that we're becoming more and more multicultural, that we're diversifying. And I think that's an important positive trend here in this region. Okay, let me kind of cut to the chase. When you ask people in these 10 counties, what are the highest of the high priorities? Look, when I talked about regional coherence, this is pretty much what it is. Public education, job creation, public safety, clean air, clean water, clean energy, and then more equal opportunity regardless of race, income, or religion. If you're looking for, in Nashville, you add the homelessness to that batch. But rarely ever, and I've done regional studies like this in lots and lots of places, you almost never see so much alignment. Almost everyone, and look at these numbers. By the way, some pollsters feel all good about themselves. They feel like, ooh, I've got a real majority here. If they've got 51%, they're happy as they can be, and they feel like they've done their job. I don't roll like that. I think that's dangerous. What I try to look for is, do we have anything at the 60, 70, 80%? Because to me, that's when you know you have a real consensus. That's when you know you can get some real momentum, when you can get some real traction. And what, to me, is so exciting for you all is to have this much degree of people agreeing on the basic priorities. You have an almost unlimited shot at doing whatever it is that you have in mind to do. I do want to point out, there are a lot of things on this list of top priorities that if you interview just the leaders in this region, what they're focused on, while it's incredibly important, it is not totally the same as what the regular, everyday, average person has in their mind. These are the medium priorities. I won't go through all these, but you can see in the region, local food and agriculture is a much bigger deal than it is just in Metro Nashville. I did want to point out, as important as transportation is, and with all respect to planners who pretty much live and die by transportation issues alone, in this area, as was true nationally, neither roads or transit are in the super high priority. I don't take any joy in saying that. I apologize to Ed Cole and all the other transit advocates in the room, but the reality is, and I'm going to show you some more slides on transportation in a minute, as interested in people are in non-car options, at a time when fiscal resources are really tight, as we heard about from our friend from TDOT, people have to make really tough choices. And what we try to do with this kind of research is say, what's a super hot priority, and what is something you're interested in but that can wait. And then these are low priorities. Regional coordination doesn't poll that well. One of the things I wanted to say here is polling isn't destiny. Just because something doesn't poll well, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It doesn't mean it's not important. It just gives you a sense of when you're out and about, when you're doing your outreach? What is it that's really going to light people up? What's going to motivate and inspire people? And what do you either have to educate people a little bit more about or work much harder to get folks to come with you on? Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the education issue. That's the number one highest priority in this region. This part of the polling had to do with which of these actions do you feel would actually help our public schools a lot? And interestingly, more charter schools was kind of at the bottom of this list, as was the end of charter schools. So most people in this region don't see charter schools one way or the other as being what's really going to move the needle. What they do see is reducing bureaucracy and focusing, laser focus on learning, in classroom learning. Investing in parent education and support services. People here have a strong sense that that's the way through. Translators, just having translators. One of the things I heard in the interviews over and over and over anecdotally, people would say, Robin, do you know that in some of our schools they speak over 100 different languages? That soundbite is so well understood in this region. And so people are naturally, well, why don't we get some translators or some software that does translation? Surely there's something that we can do besides lay that on the teacher to sort it out on their own. This is kind of interesting. Assigning a college-educated mentor to every child that doesn't have a college-educated parent. A lot of people think that one thing would do a whole lot to make things better. I put this out here. I'm not an education expert. I do think you have a real opportunity at driving consensus around the issue of public schools, and it's hard for me as somebody coming from outside the region to see all the squabbling and drama, frankly, over charters when there's some other things you all could do that would be much more unifying. Okay, let's talk again about transportation. And this is a place where sometimes polling doesn't totally line up. Transportation isn't a priority for most people, but they say it's extremely difficult to get around here if you don't have a car. And I can tell you, traveling from Austin, it's not just hard to not have a car here, it's hard to get a cab. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, most people will say if 1 is very difficult and 10 is easy, it's an average of a 3. You have a lot of people in this region that are saying, you know what, if I didn't have a car, I'd be in really tough trouble. Are there other ways you'd like to get around? Well, heck yeah, BRT, you can see those numbers, bus, rail, streetcar, just plain walking. This kind of blew my mind. In Austin, if you come see me in Austin, and I invite you all to anytime, I'll show you. I'd love to show you my town. The number one hottest on fire consumer trend in Austin, Texas today is something called car-to-go. It is the coolest thing you can do. It used to be the cool thing in Austin was to be a guitar player. That's done. Now the cool thing, I'm dead serious, now the cool thing is you get in your car-to-go. Car-to-go is a car about the size of this clicker, but you can rent it by the minute. And there's hundreds of them. You go anywhere in Austin, there's a car-to-go. They get premier parking from the city. If you go to Austin city limits, the very best parking spots are reserved for this car-to-go service. It is insanely successful. I looked to see if you guys had one of those around here. Unfortunately, if you have one, it's kind of hidden from view. Car share numbers here, there's a lot of interest in car share, lots of interest in bike and even bike share. So this chart pretty much says, look, there's demand. People are interested. This is very healthy compared to other regions. I would love to show you the Tulsa, Oklahoma numbers for this, a lot lower. So you have a lot of people who are interested in other options. I love this question, and I want to give Michael Skipper credit. This is a question that, most of these questions are ones that were designed by a team, but this is a Michael Skipper special. If you had to decide on an overall strategy for improving transportation, which of the following would be your first priority? Improve or expand mass transit options. That's almost everybody, that's the number one answer. Build new or widen roadways, and see where those numbers turn out. And then, I'm sorry folks, as important as it is, not that many people would make it their first priority to do walk or bike, head stuff. And I know your bike program is incredibly successful, and I think, Mary, you actually ride your bike quite a bit and do the walking thing. And again, this isn't to say people don't want it. It's just if they have to pick one thing to invest in, they're pretty clear on what that one thing is. I want to talk about sustainability. I'm famous in planning circles for saying, shut up about sustainability. Literally, that was a headline in one of the blogs. And what's hard for people to understand is in my hometown, I am seen as a leading environmental advocate. I actually chaired the most litigation-oriented environmental group in Texas for 3 years. So it's not because I don't love the environment, that I'm not passionate about the environment. It's not that I haven't dedicated my whole life to sustainability. The problem is sustainability as a term, it confuses people, they don't know what it is, or it gets politicized. And so when I say shut up about sustainability, I'm not saying don't do the important things that make us more sustainable. I'm saying choose your words very, very carefully and don't turn off people before you even get started. And that's just, I don't want to be standing here saying that, but looking around the country, looking in states like Tennessee and Texas, you just don't want to do it. But I say that, but then let's look at this polling. The question was simply, how important is the issue of sustainability to you on a scale of 1 to 10? Of everything in the poll that I did for this region, this completely blew my mind because on a 10-point scale, sustainability came out in number 7. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, how did you define sustainability? I didn't define it. I didn't define it. We let whatever was in people's minds be what their definition of sustainability was. Now, I still feel like now I probably need to provide one because there are some really good ones out there. The Ford Foundation poll, a poll I conducted, tested this. A sustainable community is closer to jobs, shops, and schools, gives more choices for housing and transportation, is more energy efficient, and better for clean air and water. If that's your definition of sustainability, about 80 or 85% of the U.S. population is with you. If you break it down in very simple, easy to understand terms, people totally get this and they totally want that. All right? The Brundtland definition, meeting the needs of this generation without stealing from the next generation or two to do it. A lot of people use a very simple definition. It's the combination of economy, equity, and environment. I propose kind of a Middle Tennessee, Nashville definition that would be a combination of healthy, educated, beautiful, affordable. To me, when I interview people here, that's what they're thinking about. Sustainability is healthy. It's an active lifestyle. It's a beautiful surrounding. It's affordable. One of the interesting things about this region, most places in the country, people will say, our region would be a lot better if X didn't have either too much influence or too little influence. I'm not going to show you that we tested, I think, 20 different kinds of groups. The only one that really showed up with any significance is small businesses, both in the region and in the metro area. They were seen as people and organizations that didn't have nearly as much say as folks wanted them to. Everybody else, maybe 20%, 30%, something like that. So again, the issue around small businesses and small entrepreneurs, I think there's a lot of upside and opportunity there. Okay, I'm going to quickly tick through some statement matching for you. It gives you a little sort of reality check. What's really going on in people's minds when they think about this region? The blank means their own county. So the poll was red. If you lived in Williamson County, that would be the county that was red. Is it a good place to raise a family? Heck yes. Is it attractive for young professionals? Oh yeah. This was specific to Nashville. Is it becoming a great entertainment zone for locals and not just for tourists? Check. Nashville's becoming a world-class city. Huge. Is it a good place for seniors over 65? Yes. Is it getting better and better for people of all races and cultures? Are you getting the picture here? This is the most positive, optimistic, love my place. This is beautiful. And the thing is, it's rare. It's rare, and you don't want to squander this much optimism and enthusiasm. Not that there aren't some issues. This is something that I think you could make a lot of hay with. When you're talking about mixed use, walkable, livable, smart growth type areas, I wouldn't really be using a lot of that terminology with people who live in this region. I would be saying, you know what, people should be able to find stores and services right in their neighborhood. Because almost everyone agrees with that. They may or may not know what smart growth is. They may not want to have anything to do with new urbanism. But things that are really close by, they're totally for that. I'm concerned that our community is becoming less affordable. That is a more intense issue inside Davidson County than it is out in the region, but it's still a much bigger deal than a lot of the leaders here give credit to. And I could tell you of the things that Austin, Texas has done wrong, if I could take one thing back that's happened in Austin since our boom times began, we not only didn't see the housing affordability problem coming, we still aren't really understanding what to do about it. Once you lose that housing affordability threshold, it's hard to get it back. And I wish that Austin had had some of the foresight that a lot of you all have. It's already starting to be on people's minds in a big way, and it's something you do not want to wait to try to solve later on. Another way of putting that is X County is working well for affluent people, but not those of modest means. This kind of cracked me up. People in the outlying counties, but who work in Nashville, should pay more of using the attractions and infrastructure in Davidson County. No, most people out in the outer counties don't really think so, but people here, some do. I don't know what to say with that. Okay, I'll try to just in the closing places here. I do always try to give a pulse on how do people think planning is going. This is in some ways it's a scorecard for how well the local planners are really doing. And again, completely off the Richter scale here, I personally want to be included in the planning. This just amazes me. You got 65 and 70% of the people in this region want to be involved, want to roll their sleeves up. They want to be part of it. Planning for growth and change in this county is on the right track. Most places, I never get those numbers. Never get those numbers. It's on the right track. People like me are never listened to in planning. That's one of the most important things that I look at. In a lot of regions, that number is in the 60, 70%. When I worked on the Dallas Forward Plan, they had a lot of problems with people not feeling like they would ever be listened to. Those aren't the lowest numbers I've ever seen, but they're pretty low. And it suggests there's better listening can be done, but it's not painful. Okay, a few thoughts here. I mentioned before the issue about charters. Education is the number one issue in this region without a doubt. And I understand it's painful, but I also understand there are a lot of things that you all could be doing that bring the region together, brings people together instead of dividing. I'm not sure, I'd be asking your leaders, are you really focused enough on energy, affordability, and local businesses? There's tremendous potential demand for transit, but I think if you position transit as something you do about traffic, I don't think it gets the emotional intensity that it possibly could get if you position it as, look, transit is what you do for economic development. Transit is what you do that connects people to jobs. I think if you can also position it as an economic issue. What would a regional small business strategy look like? I heard some incredible things going on in the roundtable discussion earlier. There are some interesting zones going on. How do you connect those? When I travel here, I'm looking for local independent businesses. And how would I be motivated? How could I be coaxed? If I'm here on a business trip or a tourism trip, what about driving a couple of hours? Where could I go? What kind of cool, unique shopping could I do there that I couldn't do here or in Austin? A lot of what that's about is marketing. It's marketing, packaging, setting up maps. Hey, if you're going to this place for this state park or this national attraction, here are all the cool local businesses. That would take about 2 hours to do, and it might have a tremendous impact on the economic development bottom line. Okay, you have a ridiculous and almost embarrassing amount of regional coherence. And I don't know if you know that, but I would be doing everything in my power, whatever those bold ideas you have, whether it's transit, open space, small business, energy, or anything else, right now is the time to get busy and do everything you can on whatever bold idea it is that y'all want to do. Because this set of circumstances, where you have this much coherence, this much momentum, when you're the prettiest girl at the prom, go to town. Absolutely go to town. I do want to give a shout out. When I speak nationally, people always ask me, can you give us an example of who's doing absolutely great messaging? And I always use Bridget Jones and Cumberland Tomorrow. This language, talking about economic competitiveness and job creation, talking about the wise use of fiscal and natural resources, that will win every time against green, sustainability, climate change, yada, yada, yada. This is, so many people in the country haven't learned what you guys have learned. This is exactly the right way to frame a lot of the work that people in this room are doing. Just quickly, looking at the polling, there's some really key audiences that are already with you in the general direction that I think a lot of you want to go. Young professionals, neighborhood leaders, women over 50, if you don't mind, and I'm ancient and I mean really, really old. And I'm not saying this just because this is my peer group. A hidden treasure in this region, women over 50, they're doing a lot of the caretaking of the seniors. They're raising kids while working, a lot of them. They have a natural understanding of some of the pressures that are going on. And they usually are overlooked. Usually they're too busy taking care of someone to come to a community meeting or something like that. Targeting women over 50, especially if you're a transit advocate trying to build a campaign for transit, that is an absolute goldmine of people who understand what the problems are when you're trying to get from point A to point B. I'm going to end. I'm going to take off my consultant hat and just talk as an Austin hometown girl. I'm ready for the boomtown smackdown. You know, let's just call it like it is. We compete head on. Normally we compete for economic development, meaning whose jobs can we steal the best? Y'all stole some jobs from Dell. Okay, we understand. We got over that. Usually economic development is about, okay, who's got a really cool big company somewhere else that we can steal and get to come here. And I understand that's huge. I also understand we compete, we all do that well. Austin, Raleigh, we're doing that. We know how to do that. We're competing at the A game level there. We know how to attract talent. We're getting, Mitch and you all in Austin, we're getting an unbelievable share of the best and brightest of the young. We're doing our job there. But my idea for the smackdown is, let's figure out who can protect their affordability best. Let's see who can get the most efficient non-car transit going on. Let's see who can get the cleanest air, water, and energy. Let's see in particular, if we didn't do anything else, let's see who can educate their K through 12 best. And then just to go back to George Jones for a second, who can do all that and stay true to their core? To quote a song, the race is on. Thank you very much.